Welcome to this special episode of the Erasing Shame podcast. I'm your host, DJ Chuang, and today I'm joined with Executive Director Angie Cho of Mustard Seed Generation, a nonprofit ministry that seeks to eradicate barriers to mental health, especially for Korean Americans. And a lot of their ministry is in both English and Korean. Angie, thanks so much for making time to connect.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today.
Likewise, I'm happy to connect with you live on Zoom and recorded for our listeners and viewers on podcasts and on YouTube. And I'd love to hear how your experience has been with Mustard Seed Generation as you're one of the new team members. And I've gotten to know a number of other Mustard Seed Generation team members on the board and on the staff during the past 6 months as well. So let's hear from you first.
Yes. So I became the executive director of Mustard Seed Generation in May of this year. So it's been a little over 6 months. It has been such an incredible journey, especially the staff that I've been working with, the board members. Everyone has been incredibly supportive. And what really stands out is just their passion, because most of our board and our staff, it's volunteer based. And I noticed the board, our staff members, everyone involved, they're so passionate about what we do and what our mission is. For those that may not be aware of Mustard Seed Generation, our mission is to help in eradicating barriers to mental health within the Korean American community. And we do that by equipping leaders in our community and some of the things that we are able to provide is mental health training programs. We have different kinds of events. We started something called a fireside chat earlier this year, where we bring different relevant topics to the Asian American community. And we kind of sit around in a circle. We have a few panelists and we talk about whatever that topic was. And so one of the topics that we had was on the joys and challenges of parenting. And so that was a really fun session that we had, and something that I resonated with, especially because I have 2 young children myself. But
How old are they?
Like we offer a lot of great programs. So I have an 8-year-old daughter. Her name is Harper, and I have a 1.5-year-old named Haven. So a big age gap. So one a little more manageable, and one that's kind of wild, running amok in the house all the time.
Wow, what an accomplishment to be an executive director and to be a young mom with 2 young children. And you're based in Portland, Oregon. So what is it like being there as a Korean American?
I think, Portland is a very interesting place, I guess, in the sense, I don't know if you've heard, Portland has like this saying that is, keep Portland weird. And the way that I translate that is Portland is very accepting of different people from, whatever your background is, whatever your experience is, your religion, even your orientation. And so I feel like Portland it's like a little niche. I feel like when you go outside of Portland, it's a little more rural, but in Portland, it's a very fun place to be. Hipster city of the West Coast, I would say.
Yeah, I've been to Portland a number of times, and the public transit's amazing. And the local flavor is very pronounced because there's not a lot of franchising around there.
A lot of independent shops, and I love to eat, and I feel like we're known for our food, our food trucks. We have a lot of amazing restaurants. There's a lot of really beautiful raw beauty here too. And so if you love to hike or if you like the outdoors, Portland is absolutely wonderful, especially in the summertime and the fall.
Yes. And then Mustard Seed Generation is a virtual organization. So your whole team is remote, and you do a lot of things through Zoom, just as we're recording this conversation on Zoom. And when you host events, a lot of them are online. and
Mhm.
virtual. And I'd imagine that it's taken a bit of learning on how do you work with a virtual team. But yet
Yeah.
the need for Korean
Yeah.
American and mental health is nationwide. And so being
Mhm.
in Portland, I'm sure you have a Korean community that you have to serve in person as well. So how
Yes.
do you uh, decide as an organization on what to do that would be helpful to
Mhm.
Korean Americans?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think one of the things that MSG does that is very unique, one thing I noticed in the past 6 months is everything that we do, all of our, events and programs, they're curated um, through interviewing and researching what the
Mm,
needs are within the community. So
mhm,
even when it comes to our programs, like our mental health training programs, we're able to curate it specifically to the area that we're working with. And so, my church here in Oregon, I go to Bethel Presbyterian Church, and at our church, it's a Korean American immigrant church. We were one of the first cohorts to join in the mental health training program for church leaders.
mm,
And I think even when we had our program here, it was curated specifically for our congregate members, for our
mhm.
community. And so I think we do a lot of research, a lot of sometimes in person interviewing, a lot of surveys and evaluation to see what those needs are within a community, because it can be slightly nuanced in different cities or
Very.
different states.
Mhm.
And so I think that's something that we do very well.
Well, I'd love to compare notes about what that experience was like because I'm also part, in addition to erasing shame, it is the
Mhm.
digital outreach of Christian Asian mental health.
Yes.
And I'm just beginning my journey of how do I equip and resource churches to have mental health ministries. And I know Mustard Seed Generation has made that available for your church in particular, and they sent
Mhm.
a whole team of people to work with your church in
Yes.
developing mental health ministry. So, what does mental
Yeah.
health ministry look like for Bethel now?
I think it's still a work in progress,
Mhm,
in the sense that the programs help to really bring awareness to what
mm,
some of the issues may be and
mhm,
how we may be able to address some of the issues that come up, such as if a congregant member was to come up and say, "Hey, I feel really, lonely, or I'm going
mhm,
through depression, or suicidal ideation, or
mhm,
divorces within the family, issues, struggles around raising your child." I think there is still a lot of stigma and a lot
mhm.
of barriers to break through, but we started that process of bringing it into the congregate members' awareness, even our leaders' awareness. And
Good.
so I didn't mention this in the beginning, but my husband is an EM pastor
Mhm,
in Beaverton. So we lead a congregation together as well. And one of the things that we talk about with people that we come across is, as a family, we go through therapy as well. So
that's right.
we started family therapy earlier this year.
Mm,
It's interesting because we thought, okay, we're doing this for my daughter because she was struggling with some anxiety, self confidence, and um, I thought she was having a lot of emotional dysregulation as well. So we are like, we need to do this for Harper. But once we started going to therapy, we are like, this isn't about Harper. This is about you and me. And
mhm,
so it really helped Daniel and I to kind of continue that internal work.
mhm.
And through that, we've seen a lot of fruit, a lot of changes within our relationship and relationship with my daughter too.
Oh, that's so good to
It's
hear because
amazing. Yeah.
yes, and that's
Yeah.
surprising to hear because
Yeah.
I'm reading a book by Kurt Thompson, Anatomy of the Soul, and he's
Mhm.
describing how our brain and our mind and neuroscience actually works, and it works
Mhm.
in relationship with others. And then when it comes to parenting, it's how we as adult parents regulate our emotions that a
Mhm.
child learns how to regulate their emotions. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, there's so much that's quote unquote caught rather
Yes.
than taught.
Yeah. 100%. And I often notice sometimes what I'm feeling, my child mirrors it. And
Mm,
so it's almost a reflection of
mm,
how
mm,
I'm doing internally when I look at
mhm.
my child. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of different things that we recognized through therapy work ourselves as a family. And so we're actually coming to an end with family therapy at the end of this month. So it's been about a year. And one thing I love about it is Harper, she's only 8. And she's
Hmm.
so sad about therapy ending. So she was telling our therapist, she was like, if we stop seeing each other, who am I going to talk to when mom and dad and even baby are mad at me and everyone's yelling at me? She's like, I have no one to talk to. But we've been preparing and equipping her, letting her know that there are other safe supportive adults in her life that she could talk to if she feels like she needs
Uh-huh.
some kind of support that's not mom and dad.
Yeah. Well,
And
the hope
so,
is that we
yeah.
all learn to regulate
Mhm. Yeah.
together and with each other,
Yes.
that we learn to be safe with
Absolutely.
each other, and then we
Yes.
can grow
Yeah.
together. And that's
Yes.
also true for adults. And so many
Absolutely.
of our listeners and
Absolutely.
viewers are 20s and 30 somethings,
Mhm.
and they're in that stage of becoming independent, defining
Yeah.
boundaries,
Yeah.
discovering the voice, perhaps building
Yeah.
relationships and getting married.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we just haven't had that experience of
Mhm.
um, emotional regulation or talk therapy. And part of erasing
Yeah.
shame is to lower that
Yeah.
emotional barrier to say it's
Yeah.
okay to get therapy and it's very
Yes.
helpful.
Yes.
And here's what it looks like, and here's what
Yeah.
happens. It's been part of our conversation here.
Yeah.
And
I love
the
that.
the co-regulation happens in talk therapy. And that's like my
Mhm.
aha moment was, oh, that's why talk therapy works. When we get to
Mhm.
talk about emotions with
Yeah.
someone, then we
Yes.
have a emotional mirror to help us see our
Mhm.
blind spots, that helps see things in a different way and use a healthy model, because sometimes our family backgrounds are not the most healthy. And
Mhm.
that's true
Yeah.
for any family of origin, but particularly
Absolutely.
for immigrant Asian Americans because of our cultural differences and the immigration journey being so traumatic.
Yeah.
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 Now, I've
Absolutely.
gotten to know more about Mustard Seed Generation this year in particular because
Mhm.
I met one of your executive board members, Jen Lee,
Mhm.
in
He's
July.
amazing.
Yes, and I've
Yeah.
heard he's had quite a history
Yes.
with MSG over the years.
Yeah.
And we've also kind of taken a little road tour from Atlanta to
Mhm.
Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia, and to New York.
Wow.
And along the way, we've met Mustard Seed Generation volunteers
Yes.
and other board members. And it's been
Mhm.
such a joy to hear about the passion and the commitment
Yeah.
that your
Yeah.
organization has to really helping the needs of the Korean
Wow.
American community. And
Yeah.
one of the things that you recently did, or two things I'll mention, thinking chronologically. So one was the National Mental Health Summit for
Yes.
counselors.
Yes.
Now, I'm not an academic guy,
Yeah.
and so some of it was a bit too academic for me, but I could see how
Mhm.
valuable it was for other Asian American and Korean American counselors. So
Yeah.
describe what you did. You do your national summit every year. So
We do it
what
every
was the
year.
thinking behind this year's?
Yeah, so we started it in 2020 during the time of COVID. So it
Hmm.
originally started as an online um, summit, but eventually we're hoping to move it to in person, possibly next year. I mean, keeping our fingers crossed. But for this year, I mean, for every year, we really just want to create a space for mental health professionals to be able to come together, to connect, to also be able to network with other Korean American mental health professionals, and also learn and equip yourself with new skills, hear different perspectives. And even just resonate with one another. We thought that that was very important in helping to connect the Korean American professional community so that we are able to empower one another as well. And so that was a little bit of the thought and idea behind it.
Yeah, and as a pretty well developed nonprofit ministry, I'm sure you're getting feedback and discerning how to plan the next year's summit, perhaps in
Hmm.
person.
Yeah,
And to get to that in-person kind of event, you're going to need some funding and some resources.
absolutely.
So I know you're in the midst of a fundraising season
Yes.
this month in
Yes.
December.
Yeah.
And part of that, you've kicked it off with a webinar series where you have
Mhm.
stories of lived experience.
Mhm.
So I got to be a participant with that just this past
Yeah.
Monday night, I think it was,
Mhm.
with Pastor David Jung, who shares such a
Yes.
poignant story of his
Yeah.
crisis in faith and
Yeah.
mental health and well-being. So describe
Yeah.
the mental health series, story series that you're doing.
So we have an end of year webinar series, and we came up with the idea of having a series around storytelling for our end of year webinar because we've noticed all of us kind of notice in different spaces how storytelling has a way of connecting and bridging people together. And we felt that this series was something that could provide a space to connect and celebrate with others in our community as we hear experiences and perspectives from different speakers with all different backgrounds and
Hmm.
professions. And so ultimately, the goal of the series is first to amplify the Korean American experience, whether that's as immigrants or a 1.5 or second generation
Hmm.
Korean American parent or professionals. And we also wanted it to be a space to connect through the unique stories that we will hear. There may be many stories and experiences that we resonate with, and it could also be an avenue for normalizing the Korean American experience. And we're hoping to really create a space to
Hmm.
explore the intersection of mental health and storytelling, meaning that sometimes sharing and hearing stories can empower us. And it can also possibly give us the strength to seek support in our life or give words to really articulate how we're feeling. Um,
Hmm. Amen.
yeah, yeah. And so we thought that that's something very, very important. And, there is so much power in the collective narrative, right? It can really help us to moving towards positive change, bringing more awareness to mental health struggles, letting others know that it's okay to not always be okay, and it's okay to seek support. And there are other Asian Americans that are able to help you get to that place, or that's able to model for you what it looks like, right? To be in therapy or to seek some kind of support.
That's great. And Angie, since you get to do this part-time or full-time, um,
Mhm.
I'm guessing you have the schedule in front of you. So tell us about three of your upcoming speakers.
Yes, so I do have it in front of me. So we have two speakers lined up. So one tomorrow for Thursday night, and then we have another one on Monday night for the Korean speaking community. And so the first speaker that we had on Monday was Pastor David. He was English speaking. He really just shared his testimony and his life experiences. And we're really giving the speakers a lot of freedom in what they want to share. So we don't really know fully what they're going to share about because it could change as the night progresses. But we generally have an idea that they will be sharing about their own life. And
Hmm.
so tonight we have, or not tonight, but tomorrow night we have Dr. Chunshin Taylor, who is a mental health professional. And she'll be speaking on her own experiences. And then Monday night, we have Hannah Chung, who is a mental health professional. And
Hmm.
also, I believe she is a pastor's wife too. So she'll be speaking from her own experiences. And then on Thursday night, the 14th, that is our last webinar series. We have invited Tasha June,
Mm.
an amazing storyteller.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, she's an amazing storyteller and writer. She talks about her experience as a biracial Korean American living in Indiana. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
she'll
she's
be
the
sharing
author of a
some of her
book that
thoughts.
recently came
Yes,
out. Do you
yes,
remember the title?
yes. Tell Me the Dream Again. So
Tell
it's
Me
called
the
Tell Me
Dream
the
Again.
Dream Again. I believe she released it in April or May
Yeah,
of this
probably May, because that's
year.
Asian American Heritage Month.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we'll add a link in the show notes so people can check out the book
yes,
as well.
yeah, and it's a very quick read. I feel like it gave me so many words to articulate what I was feeling and what I was experiencing when I was younger. And even now, sometimes I don't know how to describe what I'm feeling or what I'm going through, but she really articulates it so beautifully. She was actually invited out to our church here in Portland, Oregon. And so that's how I got connected with her. And yeah, it would be amazing to have as many people come as possible to hear all of our different speakers. They have really powerful stories to share.
And how do people sign up for these webinars?
So we do have a link for registration, which I will be sending over to you, DJ,
Okay.
and you could share that with the audience.
Great. You can say it out loud for people that are just listening on audio,
Yes.
so they can just have an extra reminder of what that is.
So one way to actually get to the registration is through our Instagram. Our Instagram is at MS Generation. And so through the Mustard Seed Generation Instagram, we do have a link in our bio that will lead you to the registration. And on our Instagram page, we have some information about each of the speakers as well.
Very good. So we'll add a link to Instagram.com/MSGeneration.
Yes.
In the show notes, and I've just said it out loud so people can remember MS Generation. Since you do so many virtual events, do you record them for people that can't make it on time?
We do. So I was just going to mention, if you are not able to make it, they are recorded. And so they'll be posted for viewing very, very soon. So Monday nights, I'm working on editing it. So it will be up shortly.
Excellent. And then to wrap our conversation, you're in fundraising season and you do some fun things during your webinars as well as during your fundraising that you do some raffles or giveaways. Explain what it is that you do. I thought it was so interesting.
So during the webinar series, we wanted to do some kind of fun activity for our participants who are joining us. So on the day of the webinar, so we already passed Monday, but for this coming Thursday, and then next week, Monday and Thursday, we have raffle giveaways. And so whoever is there, anyone that's participating is entered in for a raffle to win a customized MSG Yeti coffee mug. So it's a great coffee mug, especially as it's getting colder. But also for the month of December, we've opened up an end of year fundraising campaign to continue the amazing work we do for the community in breaking down barriers in mental health and moving towards healing and reconciliation in the Korean American community, especially for those that are hurting and suffering silently. And so we opened up this campaign through the Zephy platform. So again, this is also on our Instagram page as well. And we currently have a generous donor who is willing to match donations. So this means that your contribution is going to have twice the impact. So your dollar will be doubled during this month. And so we have different, one-time donation options, monthly donation options, our fundraising campaign for the month of December. But whatever way that you donate, it will positively impact our community and the work of breaking down those barriers so that we're able to, create and have more space for dialogue around mental health.
Wow. Well, fantastic. Great to hear the continuing work of Mustard Seed Generation. Angie Cho, wonderful to have you on board and to connect with you on Zoom and introduce you again to our Erasing Shame audience.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Great chatting with you. And thank you everyone for watching or listening to this episode of Erasing Shame podcast. Connect with us at erasingshame.com and follow us or subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know what to do. Have a great, blessed day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.